of Edo. Groundation on radio culture. Yes, it's discourse among the black family. And on this edition, we are proud and indeed very privileged to have two august, knowledgeable, well-respected brothers to reason with us today. Full disclosure, we tried to bring on an empress as well. Unfortunately, at the very last minute, the empress had to go show respect to a departed one, so she could not make it. So we give thanks same wise, and we are about to go on the line very soon and go speak with Dr. Kwadwo Oppong Wadie, popularly known as Weero I. Dr. Wadie is an educationist in the Chicago area. And also Ahuma Bosco Ocansey, most famously known as Daddy Bosco. Bosco has so many titles, I don't even know which one to start with. But we'll just say he's the chairman of the Rastafari Council of Ghana. Let's enjoy some Nyabingi music. We'll be right back with our guest in no time at all. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Now you're banging music sweet like what? Don't know. Yes. Welcome to the maiden edition of the show, the program, Groundation, as was advertised, and you can all see in the course of time. It's just discourse among the black family. It, of course, will be heavily Rastafari, but it's not just Rastafari, it's just discourse among the black family. But we are happy today to start the discussion or the whole, program with a discussion with two people who it couldn't get any better. All right, we have on the line right now Ahuma Bosco Ocansey. Ahuma Bosco Ocansey is the chairman of Rastafari, the Rastafari Council Ghana. He carries many hats. I don't think there's a topic here, so I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, he is the chairman or the president of Rastafari Council Ghana. We also have on the line Dr. Kwadwo Oppong Wadie, personal friend of mine. Both of them personal friends of mine. But yes, Dr. Kwadwo Oppong Wadie is an educationist in the Chicago area. He too carries many hats, but we will also leave it right there. We're using these titles for these brethren, these kings, because of the subject that we're discussing today. We are going to look at how Rastafari manifests in Ghana. We all know about Rastafari, the Jamaican connection, Ethiopia, all of that. Ghana has a Ahuma Bosco Ocansey and Dr. Kwadwo Oppong Wadie, Weero I. All right. So, let first of all, let's take it to the very basics. So that if somebody's watching, for instance, and they don't even know what Rastafari is at all, people still struggle with what a basic definition of the concept of Rastafari would be. Take us away, Daddy Bosco. What is Rastafari to start with? Hello? Okay, there's a lot of this. Yes, can you hear me, Daddy V? All right. Let's go to Weero. Weero, did you hear the question, Weero? There's some very loud music playing. I'm not sure which of the lines has that. All right, we'll be right back. Let's fix this. Yes, indeed. We are back online. Technology, you know how that goes. We control part of it, but not all of it. So sometimes it, makes us have to take a back step and set things right. But yes, we have on the line right now Dr. Oppong Wadie, Weero I, as advertised, as introduced, and also Ahuma Bosco Ocansey, Daddy Bosco. We are going to go straight to the question I asked earlier. Daddy B, I was trying to go to the basics and find out what you would say is Rastafari. What is Rastafari? Hello. Okay. Weero, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Take it away. Take it away, please. What would you say is Rastafari? Yes.
Give thanks, and give thanks to all the listeners, and I give thanks for this program. Rastafari, in its inception, when it started, and then as it is the struggle for the realization of the liberation of African people, and within that struggle, within that emancipative struggle, is a spiritual dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the spiritual dimension itself is also a liberationist theology that seeks to realize the objective of the emancipation of African people from the 400 to 2,000 years subjugation that we have faced both at home in Africa, also abroad in the Caribbean, Europe, and the Americas.
Same. Let me wow. Let me apologize for some type of feedback that I'm not. The technicians are working on it. I'm not sure what that is. There's some heavy vibrating sound. But I don't know. We share a building with other businesses and all type of other people, so could be coming from nearby. We're trying to work on that. So apologies for the quality of the sound at this time. But yes, let's go back on the line. Bosco, are you there now? Hello, Bosco. Okay, all right. We'll keep it going until we're able to connect with Bosco again. So that's a very what should I say? That's a very fulfilling, so to speak, definition of Rastafari, right? To me, that kind of encapsulates everything.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, good. We have Bosco now. Okay, Bosco, we can hear you now. So yeah, I put yes, good. So I put a question earlier. What is Rastafari to start with at all? Let's get your outlook on that.
Okay. So Weero is dealt with it, but what Rastafari or a Rastaman who holds the teachings of His Imperial Majesty. And why I'm all about that is that in this day and age, there are various interpretations of what Rastafari is.
Yes.
And certain viewpoints of Rastafari today is contrary to the teachings of His Imperial Majesty. So for I'm a Rastaman is someone who upholds the teachings of Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I first. Give thanks.
Nice. Further down the line, further editions down the line, we'll delve deeper into Rastafari. We'll delve deeper. But right now, we're trying to actually look at how it manifests in Ghana. So basically, we're just looking at the history of Rastafari in Ghana. Let me stay with you, Bosco, before I lose you again. How was Rastafari introduced into Ghana? How did Rastafari manifest in Ghana? What's the first or the earliest spotting of Rastafari in Ghana? Bosco.
Okay, give thanks. So for Iman, and I sight Rastafari in Ghana for the first time in the mid-70s, because I remember in those days, as a youth growing up in Labadi and going to high school in Laboni, there used to be some Rasta brethren who had come from the west, and they lived in that area. But let me say this, some of the manifestations of Rastafari in the 70s was through the musicians. So around the mid-70s, classic handles was formed. Now, Ghanaians started seeing Rastafari in the public. But like I said, before them, I think I really remember the first Ghanaian Rastaman I saw, Carlos Zebi, who died, I think, he passed on like 2 years ago in the Bahamas. He was the first indigenous Rastaman I know from Labadi.
What was his name again?
I'm talking 1975, 1970.
You mentioned his name. What was his name again? You did mention his name. What was his name again?
He was a seaman, and then he stopped, and he was living in Labadi. And
Carlos Zebi.
First Rastaman I saw, and then Zebi, aka Aluke. And then from there, like I said, seeing classic handles and cool. Now from some of the first Rastis who came to Labadi were Jabeti, Big Dread, Woody Michael. That's I think 2 years ago, means blessed soul, perfect peace. And they were some of the brethren who were living in Labadi at that time, who were my first interactions with Rasta.
Wow. Very interesting.
You know what I mean? And
Very interesting.
Those times, that's the mid-70s till now, Rastafari all over the length and breadth of Ghana.
Very interesting. Let it be said. Let it be said. All right. Weero,
Yes, sir.
same question. Please, take us away.
Yeah, but give thanks. I give thanks, Papa Bosco as well. I totally agree with him, but I'm going to take it a little bit back, right? So, in the 1960s, I believe somewhere around 1964, there was a delegation sent from Jamaica to Africa, and the delegation visited 5 countries. The countries, I believe, included Nigeria, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ghana, and Ethiopia. Included in the delegation were people like Ahuma Bosco, Abaranga, Douglas Mack. Ghana, they visited Ghana. They were able to meet President Osaji Kudata. But it is also on record that when they came, they met 2 Rasta people.
2
already, in Ghana. And these Rastas were on printing press in Accra. So historically speaking, from that time, right, when they came from Jamaica at that time in the 1960s, already meet Rasta people in Ghana. But throughout the 70s, early 70s, I would say it was just once and once here and there, once and once here and there. As Papa Bosco mentioned, Bobo Zebi was certainly one of the earlier ones. And then after that time, we have, I would say, a contingent also from England that who came to Ghana. And included in that contingent was Big Dread.
Big Dread.
And
Big Dread of EWF.
a lot of noise in the
Oh gosh.
So the contingent came to Ghana from England. Some of them, for just a short visit, but Big Dread did stay. Right? And the Big Dread established after that, the Ethiopian World Federation at those areas. This was somewhere around 1977.
Wow. Very interesting. Yes, we are learning our history. Right. So this is the inception, right? But up to a point, growing up, we saw the Rastafari movement, if you call it that, or we saw the whole Rasta idea, manifesting rather strongly in the form of organizations, if you can also call them that, or mansions.
Right.
How did we transition to that? Bosco first.
Okay, so I believe you're asking about the mansions and things like that.
Yes.
Good. So, as far as I recall, as I indicated, by the mid-70s, people like Zebidem and the musicians, Jesse Mozart, all those people were around, but there weren't any mansions until we returned from Nigeria in 1983. Now, for those who will remember, there was a drought and I don't want to call it a famine, but there was no food in Ghana in those days, and those were the heady days of the revolution, when the economy was all in people. So once about 1 million Ghanaians came from Nigeria, it placed pressure on the already wobbling economy. So one of the things that the government did was that for any group of youths who were organized, they put them on the Food for Work program. At that time, Ghana had just signed on to the IMF, and there was a program called the Program of Action to Mitigate the Social Cost of Adjustment.
PAMSCAD.
Acronym PAMSCAD.
Yeah.
PAMSCAD.
I remember that very well.
So under the PAMSCAD umbrella, they had the Food for Work program. And to get that food, you had to be organized. So like I said, when we came from Nigeria in 1983 and needed to organize, Big Red brought up the idea for EWF, Ethiopian World Federation. So as far as I remember, that was the first mansion we registered officially in Ghana in 1983-84. So with that registration as a farmers cooperative, we were able to access the support under the PAMSCAD program. So that is how come we registered EWF in Ghana in 1984. Now, as I indicated, when some of us were in Lagos, we met a brother called Joseph P, who belonged to the 12 tribes of Israel faith. So Ras Wanta says, good soul resting perfectly. Joseph P to my house in Lagos. And so when we returned to Ghana in 1984, Joseph then visited us in Ghana. Like I indicated, by that time we had registered EWF. In 1986, when Jagman wanted to do his African tour, Joseph P then gave him and the contact of some brethren, Black Rice, in Lagos. So when he came to Africa, he came to Nigeria and he came to Ghana. And so in 1986, I hosted. Yeah. Now dig this. At that time, we used to have what you call it. So after we registered Ethiopian World Federation Farmers Cooperative, there were issues, you know, big people issues. Me, I was like a small boy at that time, but my big brothers like One Tap and Little Joe, they didn't see eye to eye with Big Red's ways. So they figured that we also needed to register our Farmers Cooperative, which we named Sons of Zion Farmers Cooperative. So in 86, when Gagman came to Ghana, and by that time, like the brethren them had stopped dealing with EWF and Big Red. You know, Big Red was a very strong character. And One Tattoo was a very independent-minded young man at that time. So there was like a definite fallout.
Yeah. Hello. Hello. All right. Okay. I think we're gonna go to the Weero until we're able to raise Bosco again. Weero. So so far, up to this point, is there anything you want to add, or if not, can you tell us from that point, you know, how the mansions gained roots in Ghana?
Well, while there were mansions, there were also a lot of non-aligned, I would say.
Yes.
Rastas all over the place.
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
But yeah, definitely Big Dread. And then later on, when Godman came to Ghana, there was the, I would say, incorporation of the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, EWF had been doing their own thing, but the 12 tribes, because they had this weekly meeting that they did from community to community, it gave a lot of visibility to Rastafari, right? Because recently they were making a difference in the community. So through that now people got to really interact with Rastafari people. But at the same time, as Papa Bosco mentioned earlier, another thing that was really pushing Rastafari was also the music, right? The reggae music.
Yes.
Those dimensions going on. So 12,000 EWF was for the most part the main mansion that we had in Ghana for a very long time. Until recently, I would say maybe in the last 7 or 8 years or so, there has been coming out of, I believe, the central region for the most part. So those are the main mansions, but there's also a lot of non-aligned.
How about the Bobo Shanti? Because Bobo Shanti.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Yes.
Thank you. Let me correct myself there. So in 1994, the Honorable Prince Emmanuel, who was the founder of the Bobo Shanti, also known as the Ethiopian African Black International Congress, sent delegations across Africa. Some of the delegations went to Ethiopia, some went to Kenya, some went to Nigeria, and some came to Ghana. So they came to Ghana. We had initial members of the delegation included Priest Mills, Priest Jakai, all of blessed memory, Priest Henry. So they came and established themselves initially in Teshinungwa Estates, where they were for quite a while. So during that time, that mansion also came until they were able to acquire some land in Tafu, where they gradually transitioned out of Teshinungwa Estates into their new base in. So these have been the main mansions, EWF, and also Bobo Shanti coming in 1994.
As well as the non-aligned races, like you said, which is a very, very, very important demographic as well. Don't forget.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this before we proceed. The Rastafari seems to be concentrated in Accra, right? Like, even though we know races to love the hills and the mountains and nature and all of that, the whole movement, or the whole activity, I should say, of Rastafari seems to be heavily centered around Accra. Why is that? Bosco, do we have you back?
Yeah. So for me, I think it's basically because Accra is the capital. You understand?
Yeah.
So most people cite Rastafari from the capital. From the stories that have preceded, you could realize that it was in Accra. To a large extent, Labadi was people's house.
Yes.
Because of the beach and the fact that Rastafari loved the beach and all them things.
Yes.
So yes, Accra happens to have the highest concentration of Rastafari in Ghana. Kumasi too has a good number of Rastas, because that's where you have the Nyabing and the Tabernacle right now and all those things. So for me, it's that same thing about rural-urban migration, where things tend to happen in urban areas.
Well, yeah. So but Kumasi, like you said, has had quite a presence of Rastafari, but I would say in terms of organization, it's been very recent. It's been quite recent. It was very heavily concentrated in Accra for a very long time. And even if you go further north, you would find races as well. Everywhere you go, as I came to find out traveling around Ghana in the late 90s, But maybe also because Accra just had visibility. Period. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. So okay, let's proceed. Weero.
Yes,
now we have the mansions established. How did Ghanaians receive Rastafari? And this will transition into this will segue into some of the tribulations that came the way of the early races. But how did Ghanaians receive Rastafari?
Yeah, that is a very good question. So somehow there was this, I would say, early on, and it was just propaganda, right? And just negative propaganda. Right? So this negative propaganda somehow took root. And I remember that there were also, there was a cartoonist who always put negative images of Rastafari in the newspaper. So like you take like the Ghanaian Times and you see, this image of a Rasta who was going to go marry a girl, and he goes to the girl's parents' house, and they say no way, they're not going to allow their daughter to marry Rasta. So those kind of images and stuff started giving Rastafari negative perception among the people. But at the same time, there is also, has always been a segment of the society who have always embraced Rastafari. So those two have always existed in juxtaposition. Those who have negative perceptions and those who have positive, welcoming, embracive perceptions of Rastafari. And I also want to say that, there was also an event that is worth mentioning at this point, that in 1992, the late Professor Nkululi.
Oh, yes. Yes.
They organized an all-Martian Rastafari retreat, which at Labadi Beach. So over there we had, of course, the 12 tribes, the EWF, and many non-aligned Rastafari. It was a very, very groundbreaking event. We had the presence of the military there. In the night, we were just all sitting by the beach, reasoning and playing drums. And here we see the military, come with their trucks and shine their lights on us and start to ask us questions what is going on. We came to the conclusion that we were a peace-loving people, so they just retreated and left us.
That's interesting.
But out of that particular event, some things took root. Many committees were formed, and one of those committees was the repatriation committee, right? The repatriation committee took upon itself some major tasks, and one of these tasks was to go around Ghana to secure land for repatriation purposes. But how do we do that, right? So we first of all had to seek a governmental kind of assistance, support. So the repatriation committee was able to get a letter from the government that anywhere we went, we should be welcome, and land that we were seeking was to be, granted
made available.
If possible. So through that, the repatriation committee was able to go to the Volta region, Amejope, and secure 54 acres of land over there, and also in Dodi, also in the Volta region, and secure some there as well. And then, there were other committees that were formed out of that event. We had the sports committee, we had the journal committee, we had food committee, arts and crafts committee. We had different committees, which I thought was a brilliant idea. And, at those embryonic stages of trying to expand, Rastafari across the board in Ghana. So I think that was also a pivotal event. But in addition to that, we also have to again mention the name of Professor Nkululi, who also was one of the earliest who wrote letters to the Ghanaian Parliament, to President Rawlings, for the whole idea of repatriation, but through the revision of what was then known as the Aliens Act. And this Aliens Act, of course, included anybody who was not born in Ghana was considered an alien. So you could come to Ghana from even Ivory Coast and you were considered as an alien, right? So definitely, brothers and sisters coming in from Jamaica, Trinidad, United States, all these places were considered as aliens. So Professor Nkululi wrote for that law to be changed, and continued agitating for a revision of that law. And we have seen that through these agitations, we have had citizenship granted to many brothers and sisters of the diaspora, even though it's rather unfortunate that when today these discussions are made, we don't hear any mention of
his name, and that's very shameful because Weero, from what you're saying, it actually means that he can be credited with the whole idea of the dual citizenship that Ghana has offered our brothers and sisters right now.
Absolutely. You're right. Wow. And there is no question about that. I mean, one of the very first letters went out on August 9, 1993, and this is addressed to the Speaker of Parliament of Ghana for the revision of all laws related to the alien and also repatriation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is talking about any dual citizenship, in the system. In fact, the whole idea of repatriation seems very foreign in the minds of a lot of people. People even say things like, we are suffering here in Ghana, why do you want to come and stuff like that. But through these agitations, and the thing that Prof did was also argue on the basis of principle, and not just investment, but the fact that the Africans were taking
Africans too. It's their land too.
Absolutely. On the basis of that principle, that if they hadn't been taken out of Africa into the West, they would
still be there.
And therefore, there should be a legal channel for brothers and sisters who want to be able to return and live in Ghana to be able to do so. And also their residency status be adjusted to reflect that request. And I want to mention here, I want to read from the document that was written, and he says that this distinction should come through an amendment of the Aliens Act 1963, Act 160, Section 39. It is proposed and recommended that the first paragraph be revised to, quote, in quotes, alien means any person who is not a citizen of Ghana and who is not an African born outside Africa who has returned or repatriated to live permanently in Ghana as home. So this is the basis of this whole idea of revising the law to enable brothers and sisters in the diaspora to be able to also regularize their stay in Ghana, and hence the multiple occasions that we've seen the presidency grant dual citizenship to brothers and sisters outside Africa. So the point I'm making here in summary is that within all these things, Rastafari has played a very crucial role, even though in a way, these roles have not been amplified for one reason or another. When we hear of the dual citizenship and regularization of the stay of brethren and sisters, we only seem to hear as if it was something that was either originated by the government or it was something that, came from the United States or something like that. But no, it actually was by Rastafari.
Wow. Rastafari never get enough of the credit that we deserve. These days, we hear them talking about legalization of marijuana, and after chastising Rastafari for so long, nobody's giving none of that credit to Rastafari either.
No.
Now they're behaving as if it's a stock exchange subject. Anyway. Daddy Bosco. Daddy Bosco. So Weero has mentioned that there was also a demographic of Ghanaians that were very welcoming of the whole Rasta concept. What was the appeal? What would you say was the appeal? You, especially being on the ground, organizing, trying for the cooperatives and all that. What would you say was the major appeal of Rastafari to the Ghanaian community?
Okay, so before I go there, I just want to put on record that when the majority leader in Parliament made a statement with regards to the passage of the Narcotics Act, they actually credited Rastafari.
Oh, they did?
Do you understand?
What did they say? What exactly did they say? I'm interested.
Good. So Chairman Sabonsu on the floor of Parliament was thanking everybody for the work that had been done, and then in conclusion in his remarks he said, let us not forget our Rastafari brothers and sisters who had been, what you call it, on this case. Because I remember that I personally had been in Parliament a couple of times when they were reading those bills, and between Aswad and Nanaji, man, they were like there nearly every day. And of course, INI's been agitating for this thing from day one. So I'm sure they must have been hearing, and I think he felt it was only proper for him to share some of the credit with Rastafari. But back to the issue of how Ghana was receptive to Rastafari. Truth be told, in the 80s, Rastafari was ostracized. Now dig this. At that time, you could count the number of Rastafari in Ghana on your hand.
Yes.
You understand? If one hand, if you counted more than one hand, then you had the next hand, and that is it. So I clearly remember in 83, 84, 85, 86, you could hardly sit in a public transport.
Yes.
Because Rastafari was so alien at that time. And compound that with what Weero was talking about, the negative propaganda and all that. And don't forget, in Ghana, they call marijuana Apunsantawa.
Exactly.
And the work of Peter Tosh and Bob Marley had made Rastafari synonymous with Indian hemp, weed, ganja. So the average Ghanaian's posture on Rastafari was na.
Yeah.
And I clearly remember in those days when someone dreads lock, they had to leave their home. And that's how come for a long time Rainbow Valley in Labadi was like a refuge. And then fortunately we had the farms. So most youths in the city, once they turned Rastafari and they left home, the next stop was Labadi and the farm.
Wow.
As time went on, people's perception about Rastafari was changing, and that was largely due to people who lived in abroad, who had had personal encounters with Rastafari and knew that Rastafari was in criminal, Rastafari was in bad and all those things. And so by the time we got into the 90s, the attitude towards Rastafari started changing through to the early 2000s. And I tell people that one of the things that helped Rastafari was, it got to a time when people became very health conscious and all that.
Yeah.
And especially the ladies started growing their dreadlocks as fashion. And so with all these saloons around, that is where, because now they came to realize that, it is not the dreadlocks that makes somebody criminal, or it's not even being a Rastaman makes you criminal.
It's not even connected.
So people started wearing dreadlocks as a matter of fashion or consciousness. And for me, those were some of the things that started changing the perception of Rastafari. Apart from the fact that they started seeing Rastafari differently from what the propagandists were saying. They started seeing images of Rastafari. For instance, when Prophet Nkululu came to Ghana, that was like a watershed moment, because here's a Rastaman from Jamaica who is working for the Ministry of Tourism. You understand? So that is when people's perceptions or attitude towards Rastafari began to change. But truth be told, in the 70s and 80s, Rasta was like a taboo. Yeah, man.
Yes. And Weero, you were saying something?
Well,
Well, I was also going to add to the fact that, when he really came to Ghana, as Bosco referred to, that was also a very pivotal moment in terms of the perception that people have for Rastafari. Because, he is a Rasta man who was constantly on the news being interviewed, with his work with the State Enterprises Commission and all
like
that
the big man, right? Same as the big man
right.
that they see in society.
I remember even the so-called big men, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would come to him to learn.
Yes.
So they were also, like, wow, this Rasta people, we would think that they're this, but they're just not that, right? So that also helped. And like Papa Bosco said, a lot of interaction with people from, Ghanaians who had traveled abroad, but also with Rastas who were returning home from abroad. And also just the day-to-day Rasta just was living up. People interacting with you, saying that you're not that fearsome person that is to, stay away from.
That you don't catch children.
Right.
I remember. Just let me just tell this short story to ease up a little bit before we go on. So Mapsey, right? Brethren, we all know the beloved Brethren Mapsey. So we're in a taxi together in Kumasi, and then this lady had a baby, and the baby was crying, and the lady was trying to get the baby to stop crying. So she tried everything, the baby wouldn't stop crying. Now the lady says, "Mema Rasta man not chill." Like after everything has failed, right? Yo, listen, after everything has failed, the next thing is your member Rasta man natural. You see what I'm saying? And you can imagine Mapsey's response to something like that. The lady, I'm sure, went home with 10 years worth of education on Rastafari, believe me. So anyway, that's it. That's some of the things we used to go through. But Weero, so Prof also did something very noteworthy. He also connected with some youth in the educational system and actually prompt them, encourage them, put them on a course. And because people still had the idea that Rasta, even myself, my grandmother used to cry at my bedside every morning because she thought knotting your hair or going Rasta meant that you were not going to go to school anymore, right? Tell us about that. Tell us about the connection over there.
Absolutely. So, as you know, Prof himself was somebody who was an educationist and also a business expert. So, he really valued education. And I want to contrast, I'm not going to mention any names, right? But I remember as a young Ras coming up, there was an elder, for instance, who was like, you all should stop going to school and come and sell ice water to raise
I know why you don't want to mention names. It's all right.
So there was that aspect. And certainly when Prof came, he really encouraged the youth to pursue education.
Yes.
Whatever way they can, because even personally, my personal story here, I was Nati before I went to the University of Ghana, and when I was applying for the University of Ghana, a whole lot of people thought I was absolute crazy to be actually trying to go to the university as a Ras with luck. In fact, people were coming to even advise that, why don't you take an old picture?
Oh my word!
And put it on and use it for that.
Use your own picture to apply.
I said no, and my reason was that if we don't do this today,
When?
And what will happen to our children and the future generation?
Yes.
So, back then we had the main University of Ghana, University of Science and Technology. So, of course, I applied to all these universities, but then University of Ghana totally, said, you're welcome, I'm here. And I remember coming back into my neighborhood, after spending some weeks on campus, and the parents were just like, wow.
What?
I remember one parent coming to me and say, you try too much. I said,
Yo.
Go enter the university. They go do nothing. I said, no. Why you think they go do something? Right?
Wow.
So I think that, those barriers, and there were a lot of things that also helped to break some of the barriers. And we cannot sit here today and think that the barriers have all been broken.
No.
There are still many barriers.
Because not too long ago, we saw Terry Magai's son.
I remember there was an elder who told me, and this corroborates, because I came after people like Bosco, right? I was a young guy in those days, but some of our elders told us, like, you can go sit in a trotro bus, and whilst waiting for the bus to be full, the driver and the mate would just tell you, the Rasta, to get off the bus so that somebody else could get on. So I've even heard stories, right, of people getting to like police barriers and stuff in a bus, and then the police just saying, hey, you rats, get off the bus, right? So that kind of ostracization, that kind of
And Weero, you know how you
today, never forget that.
Yes.
And also know that there is still more work to be done.
You know how you said it's not alien? It really isn't, because I'll tell you what. Just last September, thereabouts, I was in Ghana. Less than 48 hours after I landed in Ghana, I went to go eat with my brother, my producer. We were riding in a taxi. We were stopped. The producer, the guy, what do you call him? The policeman looks past my brother, past the producer, and pulls me out of the car. And even the tone, the language, my friend, come down for a search. Like, why? A free country that's promoting tourism, right? Policeman can just pull somebody out of the car for no reason. And then I'm asking him why he's fumbling all over the place. Anyway, and then again, you remember Terumagai's son with the Motown thing and all of that, So you understand why the parent came to you and said, you try brutal, because many years later, there are parents who will still go to Terumagai's son and say, you try brutal, because they still cannot connect. It's sad. But Bosco, let me also ask you one thing also that I think personally helped Rastafari penetrate is that organizations like the one that you head, right? And I'm not talking about Rastafari Council. I'm talking about, and we should have mentioned that at some point, that you actually are also the captain of the 12 Tribes of Israel. Are you still the captain of the 12 Tribes of Israel?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So the 12 Tribes of Israel had a lot of attraction for races, not necessarily dreads, but a big demographic that was attracted to your organization without necessarily, having that outlook that people considered negative. Tell us about that.
Okay, good, thanks. So one of the things that John Tribe did was taking Rastafari around the whole of Accra and Tema, like Weero said. And for me, that was one of the positive things. Another thing was because John Tribe were not partial against white people. And dig this, the psychology of the African vis-a-vis white people. Africans hold white people in high esteem. So this is a group of Rasta man who is moving around with white guys, white man, white woman, and all those things. It affected the perception quite positively. You understand? So then people started seeing that, oh, Rasta is not just what we thought. And then sometimes when we're having a conversation and we're reflecting on the journey of the 12 tribes of Israel, what we say is in those days there were a lot of people coming from the diaspora, not just white people, but black brothers and sisters coming from America, from UK, from Jamaica and things. And so at nearly any point in time, at the HQ, there were visitors from abroad. And that was in itself like a magnet, which tended to attract people to the HQ and to the work. That is one. Two, Dad mentioned something about the music.
Yes.
And in those days, 12 Tribe used to keep a lot of celebrations all over the place. People still come up to me and say, it was going for you to do those dances again.
Yeah.
It was through those dances that the likes of Kente, Roots, Anamu, Smart Ape, Nukoko, may so rest in peace, all came and participated. So those were some of the things that gave 12 Tribe a certain appeal, to the youth and things. And another thing too that we think is that 12 Tribe was like a Jerusalem schoolroom where people could come and have a full understanding of Rastafari and then possibly move on. So for me, I think those were some of the things that positively impacted the work of the 12 tribes of Israel.
Nice. So
Yes, thanks.
I don't want us to veer off course, so I'll just ask you, I'll just put this in passing, and then maybe we can discuss that another time. But the whole idea of having white people, like you said, fronting, so to speak, for Rastafari and all that, when it was supposed to possibly be like a liberation thing from the same, that presents a few questions to some people. I think we'll leave that for another discussion because I want us to stay on the history, right? But with your indulgence, I hope that's one subject we can also tackle at some point. Remember, on this platform, we are going to tackle the uncomfortable topics that we don't want to tackle, because you know why? The same things that I used to hear when I was a young dread growing up, I'm hearing those same things today with my gray beard, and it's uncomfortable. You know why? Because we're not talking. So we need to talk, right? We will be tackling all these topics. Yes. But anyway, so let's move on though. So Weero, from that point where now Prof has come, made that impact, he's left. How did Rasta penetrate? How did Rasta gain roots? How did Rasta spread? And we've already mentioned some of it already. Bosco just mentioned some of it. The propagation, the music, all of that. What would you add to that, Weero?
Yeah. So I think also is the radio, right? For a very long time in Ghana, we only had GBC 1, GBC 2. The airwaves were free control, right? I believe it was around 1994, 95 that the government decided to begin like a pilot situation to see if they could liberalize the airwaves. So back then, I was a student and I remember Kwadwo Oppong, who is the son of the late General Odate Wellington. Having me as a Rasta brother came and it was like, we need you. And I said, well, for what? And he said, we want to start a radio station here on campus. And we really need you because we know that you are deep into this music and you can share the music with us. So Radio Universe was born out of that. And when we started, we were like being monitored every day from like the barracks, the camp. But then when they realized that, you know,
for just playing reggae music, the most peaceful music you could ever find anywhere on planet Earth.
Right. So when they realized that there was no threat there in terms of politically or whatever,
yeah,
you know, other radio stations also started getting licenses to be able to broadcast what they wanted to broadcast. And I remember one of the earliest of those stations was Group FM, of which Kwesi Bosco was a part of in those times. So Kwesi Bosco at Group FM, we at the Universe, and then we had later on Black Latino, Ultra B,
yes,
all these races now coming on air, right? And you know, you play the music, but at the same time you also portray the culture, right? So I think that was also a big boost, and also that provided a great platform for interaction between ourselves as presenters and the community at large. And another thing is that they went from, you know, also like red love musicians, right? Who were generally loved by the public,
yes,
right?
yes.
So also help people like Kwadwo and
Kwadwo it's a good example.
Right. So I was say the radio was also a pivotal vehicle through which Rastafari, you know, spread throughout apart from the aforementioned vehicles.
Nice, very nice. And I think one thing I would also add to it is that the races that came early, like yourself, I mean like even Bosco, let me go further, like Bosco, right, and everybody presented themselves well, right? They made a good case for Rastafari, in spite of the fact that there was a lot of negative publicity against Rastafari, like we've already explored, and also the fact that some people actually fed into that narrative, right? By and I don't know if you remember this, Weero. Let me juggle your memory a bit. You remember one night at Afro Caribbean, right? There was a show at Afro Caribbean, and then there was there was this guy with some type of dread, who was with some couple woman, foreign woman, doing all type of things, and I think it kind of offended you a little bit, and you couldn't stand it. You spoke up against it, But what I'm saying is, there are people who kind of gave a negative, that kind of fed into the narrative that racists were this type of undesirable breed. But generally speaking, I think there were a lot of racists, Bosco, yourself included, further down the line, other racists and empresses that we can mention. Don't forget the empresses. Gave a good account of themselves. They lived a worthy life, and they gained the respect of their families as the nucleus, right? And by extension, moved on. Would you agree to that? Some of our races became teachers, right? Mapsey, for instance, went to go teach in the Brown Hafo region for years. Boomba went to go teach art in the north for years. I think all these also contributed. Do you agree?
I absolutely agree, and I think that again, one thing we also have to emphasize here is that the society always used to say that Rasta don't like to work, right? But the fact of the matter is that they never did want to do Rasta any kind of work. And the one avenue that always embraced us when we had our qualifications is the education system, has always been the education system. So that's why we find a lot of Rasta brethren gravitate towards teaching, and as you mentioned, many brethren, including myself, have gone to the rural areas and have taught over there. And I think that the whole idea of you standing in front of the students teaching is also a positive view for the society, seeing that Rasta is actually a positive person
Yes.
and really impacting our youth, because you know, when we come to do something, we're doing it wholeheartedly, right?
Yeah.
And I know I remember, like, when I was in the village, for instance, I not only did I teach from Monday through Friday, but I also invited students who wanted to
Extra classes.
sharpen their skills to come on Sunday, and I wasn't charging for that or anything. So the parents, of course, were very, very delighted with something like that. And I'm just using this as an example because I know that, like the names you mentioned, Mapse, Boomba, Cabo,
Yes.
you know, all these, the late Ras Johnny and all these brethren, in one way or the other, were all also involved with the education system. And
Yes.
that was also a dimension that also helped change that perception that some people wanted to have of I.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Bosco, what would you add to that? What would you add to that, Bosco?
Definitely. What it is through what some of the brethren and sisters were doing, people could then realize that there was a different side to the coin as they had been perceiving Rastafari. And for me, I like to say that big respect to all the youths who set up themselves as an example
Yes.
for society to see that Rastafari is
Rastafari.
something negative. Weero indicated that there's a lot of work to be done, but I tell my friends that today Rasta is virtually in heaven. Because if you close your eyes and you look at 1983, 84,
Yes.
when, like Weero was saying, the mate will even come to tell you that, Massa, people don't want to come inside the car so we can get down.
Oh, Charlie.
To now, that, I mean, Rasta is accepted to a large extent.
Yes, we've come a long way.
Space.
We've come a long way, but I think there's still some. Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Let me share another funny story of mine. Let me share another funny story, right? So that thing, I say, if you know that type of thing which sits on your conscience and you're so angry, and every time you remember you're still angry, but after a while you feel like. So this guy, right? This guy, you remember the time when what year was it exactly? The 9/11 time, you know, all that turmoil, right? And Rasta man with my beard, everything, you know, well dressed, everything, you know, walking down the street somewhere in Kumasi, and then a truck zooms past, right? And then the mate sticks his neck out and says, "Hey, Osama bin Laden," you know, and then the whole bus burst out into laughter as the bus slowly drives, and I'm like, what do I even have in common with Osama bin Laden? Like, and I'm, oh, okay, all right, I have a beard, but I have a beard, but so does a lot of other people, right? And how is a beard even a problem? You know, and I know that that Bosco, I hear you today saying that, yeah, we're having and all of that. The music has a lot to do with it, and also because of social media these days. It's easier to see images, you know, like imagery of successful races, all of that. So it's easier for people to connect. But back in the day, it was a very rocky road. You know, it wasn't easy at all. And
I tell you, Rasta, I clearly remember when I started my dreadlocks in Aquinas. Reverend Father Beck, the school chaplain, told my mom, I was in Form 2, to take me to the psychiatric hospital.
Oh, gosh.
To check if I was normal.
Oh, gosh.
And he took me to the psychiatric hospital. The psychiatrist did his normal thing and told my mama, your son is perfectly all right. Nothing is wrong to him. Nothing, you know. And so, like you're saying, it's gone very far.
Well, you were lucky the psychiatrist did his job right, because he could easily have just been like the others and just recommended that they give you like several doses of Legatil or something like that.
And they did that.
Now, wow, Charlie, today we laugh about it, but you know, it's been a fight. It's been a fight. Rastafari has come a long way. You know, our time is almost spent. In fact, we are over the time right now. We are 15 whole minutes over the time. I didn't even realize. So, with my producer's permission, okay, all right, cool. So we'll take 5 more minutes. No, not 5. We'll take 15 more minutes. All right, and make it an hour and a half, and then we'll round it up nicely. This has been such a vibrant discussion. I don't want to go, but anyway. So let's look at some of the things that we would rather have not happening among the Rasta brethren. We have segmentation, which to me is fine in a certain way because people, choose to identify with this or the other, or to stay non-aligned, like we will say, But then, up to a point, it becomes a problem because there arise problems of quote-unquote doctrine, problems of philosophy, problems of ideology, even within the broader ideology. Let's address that. Weero.
Yes, sir. Well, I think that one of the things that we need to realize is that I think when we think of unity, most of us think that in order for you and I to unite, we have to think the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I beg to differ.
Yes.
And this is even our mothers who give birth to us, we don't agree with them 100%.
All the time, yep.
You understand me?
Mm-hmm.
So unity is dependent on purpose. But that doesn't mean that if you belong to an organization, if you're not aligned, if you belong to that organization, we don't have to live with what we believe, but we have to live with what can we do together.
Yep.
Right? Because we can certainly work on many things together.
Yes.
Whether the 12 tribes believe in repatriation, Bobo believe in repatriation,
yes.
Nabili believe in repatriation,
yes.
non-aligned believe in repatriation.
Yep.
We are doing repatriation work. We can come together.
Absolutely.
And work. Coming together doesn't mean that you should stop your pursuing your doctrine
and follow mine.
You embrace.
That has never been our way as Africans, anyhow. That has never been our way.
We need to understand that we can work together on specific purposes, specific objectives, without bringing in your personal doctrine. And I think that whereas the segmentation may still exist, I also think that there has been progress made in terms of being able to work together, because I remember, as a youth coming up, there were some brothers, like when they saw you, another rat in town who belonged to a different organization, right in the middle of the street, they would blaze fire.
For no reason, just for meeting you. Oh my God. Yo, listen.
Those attitudes, I'm glad to see that for the most part, they are no longer prevalent. But I also think that in terms of unity, we should understand that, look, when you walk on the street as a dread, nobody thinks of you as this dread is a dog dread. Or this dread is a non-aligned person. Or this dread is a boo-boo.
They only see Rastafari. Yes.
So in the same way, we should eschew those tendencies and really think at working on things that we can work together. If there are things that don't demand that we work together, that's fine. But I think that we should not be leading with doctrine, right? Everybody's doctrine is valuable to them, and therefore we should leave it at that. But things that we can work together, let's do that. And then that will be all of us across the board.
Very well spoken. Very, very well spoken. And let me. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. Also, especially on the point that progress has been made, because I remember back in the day when, and I'll give you one good example. There was a night where, and I'll not mention the names of the mansions, just to stay safe. But yeah, there was a night where 2 mansions were holding Earth Day celebration, right? Now, one of the mansions had their equipment all set. They had an extra set of equipment which they were not using too much like that. And the other mansion had issues with the equipment for the night. So they were trying to get this other, mansion to lend them the equipment. They would have none of it, on the grounds that you should have come to our event and not, So, but now I don't see that happening anymore. Now what I see happening is a sort of confluence, of all these and those things, like burning fire on brethren on the streets and things like that. I hope to everything that's good that's a thing of the past. I don't believe that's happening anymore, And if it is, we need to get to the bottom of it and make that stop, because we are here for a mission. We're not here to wear dreadlocks and smoke weed, people. We're here on a mission. Anyways, Bosco, please, you are going to add on that?
Yeah. What it is Rastafari has come a long way, but we haven't come far enough. I tell people that when they're comparing Rastafari with other doctrines and faiths, you're talking about Christianity, which has been around for how many hundreds of years. You're talking about Islam, that has been around for how many hundreds of years. You're talking about Rastafari, which has been around for just over 100 years. So sometimes, and as Rastafari, we unduly beat ourselves. We need to be more accommodating towards each other. Like Weero said, when a layman sees a dreadlocks Rasta man, they do not care or know if he is this or that. And that is one of the driving thoughts that led us to come up with the Rastafari Council Ghana. The idea for the council is to work for the socio-economic development of Rastafari. So we agree and accept that we all have doctrinal differences. However, since we all say Rastafari, since we all say repatriation, these two components should be the fulcrum around which we work. So when we deal with council business, we do not want to go into the details of doctrine and those things. We say, once you say Rastafari and say repatriation, let's sit around the table and see how we can build on the commonalities, on the things that hold us together, instead of the things that divide us. So for me, looking into the future, I'm seeing a time when ones and ones who profess Rastafari will be able to sit around the table, work on common agenda to advance the cause of Rastafari. Because I tell people, look, bottom line about Rastafari is African emancipation. You understand? So once we're talking African emancipation, let us not worry too much about what let us focus on the prize, which is our contribution to the African cause. Simple.
Nice. Very well put. Very, very, very well put. Bosco, tell us more about the Rastafari Council, though. You've said almost, you put it, you summed it up for us and everything. But I want to know, what's his constitution? I mean, the constitution. I mean, who constitutes the Rastafari Council? And anything else you want to tell us about the Rastafari Council? Who can be a member?
The Rastafari Council is made up of about 14 mansions and organizations.
14.
The exciting thing about the council, the exciting thing about the council is that it's not just mansions and organizations, but we have a lot of non-aligned people who do not identify with any of the mansions. They come to the table as Rastafari, and that is what keeps us together. Now, over the years, I tell people that voluntary work requires commitment, and commitment levels vary. So what you need is to hold the baton and pass it on to the next generation. And thankfully, that is what the council has been able to do this far. Next year, we're going to Sunyani to have the 8th National Rastafari Conference. it allows I and I as people to sit together and reason about what we can do together to advance our cause. So for me, it's exciting to be part of the council, and we're looking forward to doing more things in common. For instance, this year, Prof was with us in a meeting, and I is looking forward to doing more things together. And quickly, let me salute Prof for sponsoring our tree planting exercise that we had earlier. And I know that the more we sit together and reason together, we can be able to pool our strengths, resources to be able to do more for Rastafari.
Selassie. All right. So before we go, a comment from social media. Sapon says he comments Daddy Bosco for the work you're doing for Rastafari Council, but he thinks that the Rastafari Council should be more vocal in times of national what's that word, national something. I'm sure he's talking about like when something happens in the country, he wants like the Rastafari Council to be more vocal. I believe that's what you mean, Bridget. But yeah, I'm sure the point is well noted. So Weero, yes, before we round up, I think we have how much time do we have now? We have just 3 minutes to go. So what we're gonna do is we'll pick it up next week with either a continuation or another subject. I am so grateful to my two guests, my panel, Daddy Bosco, Ahuma Bosco Ocansey, President, Rastafari Council Ghana, and Dr. Kwadwo Oppong Wadie, Weero I, an educationist. Bosco, are you the president or the chairman of the Rastafari Council? What's the actual title? Are you the chairman? Okay.
Of the Rastafari Council Ghana.
Okay.
And the chairman of the Rastafari Continental Council.
Okay.
Which is a grouping of various Rastafari organizations and individuals across the African continent.
That is interesting, and I think we should examine that as well, possibly in another edition of Groundation. Thank you so much, Weero and Bosco. Before we go though, any last words? Let me start with you, Bosco.
Yeah, sure. Give thanks, Emperor, for putting this together. I think that it is very important that we have these kind of discussions that throw light on the history of Rastafari in Ghana. There has been a lot said, particularly regarding repatriation to Ghana, for instance, but there's very little in terms of discussions that regard we, the indigenous, so to speak, Rastafari community in Ghana. So having such a platform and you providing us with such a platform is a very positive step, I think, for us to take a look back, because without taking that look back, we cannot really move forward. So once we are able to use these instances to take a look back, then that gives us a conduit through which we can propel ourselves into the future. So I give thanks to you. I give thanks to Papa Bosco. I want to say shout out to Papa Bosco, who I've known for a very long time. Right? I mean, I knew him when I was like maybe 18, 19 years or something. And he's always been at the forefront.
Yes.
Made immense contribution to our development.
Yes.
In Ghana.
Yes.
And he continues to do it. So
yes.
I give thanks. And I want to encourage all Rastas, let's not sit on the sidelines. Let's not get emotional about stuff. But let's, be action oriented, and let's work to realize the things that we want to see. So for these words, I give thanks.
Selassie, I give thanks, Weero. Bosco, last words.
Yeah, I think it's thanks for this opportunity, and I look forward to us doing some more. It's important I tell stories.
Absolutely.
If we don't tell our story, somebody else will change the narrative and say the wrong things about what we've done and what we're doing. And I'd quickly like to say, I like to plug my book, Conversations on the Creative Arts in Ghana.
Yes.
I have a whole portion talking about the history of Rastafari in Ghana. I encourage everybody to pick a copy on Amazon. Rastafari love.
Every time. Thank you so much, Bosco, and thank you, Weero. Thank you, listeners, and those watching on Facebook, YouTube, and all the other social media platforms. We really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. And this is not the end, it's only the first edition. Next week, we will be back with either a continuation of this subject, like I said, or another fresh topic with my August brethren. Thank you very much. This has been Radio Culture. This is just really Jahbeloved. I'm signing out. See you next week. Goodbye.